We are here. First of all, good morning. We are here. We are here for obvious reasons. And with that, I think it's only appropriate that we begin this program with a moment of silence. Come on, guys, a little bit of respect. A moment of silence, please. Thank you. While these moments of silence and prayer are absolutely necessary, they alone are not enough. They are yet another reminder that we must do better. As mayor of this wonderful community of West New York, I welcome you all to our Memorial High School. And as saddened as I am, and all of us are, from the tragic events that our children and all of us are facing together as a nation, I am equally as proud of the youth that stand before you here today, behind us and here. I want to sincerely thank our federal leadership, U.S. Senator Bob Menendez, Senator Cory Booker, as well as Congressman Albie Osiris, who could not join us today due to a knee surgery, for always and once again today standing up for what is right, and for calling this press conference here today to demand the necessary change. Like many, we began this morning with meetings. Today was a special meeting. Courageous and compassionate students, future leaders that you see behind me and to the side of me, demanded to speak to administration and elected officials about the current state of affairs as it pertains to gun control. It was a meeting with courageous and compassionate students and future leaders that I am extremely proud of. They were valiant enough to come forward because they're scared, because they don't understand why they have to feel scared to come to school. They don't understand it. I don't understand it. And our leadership does not understand it. I thank and commend our senators for spending time and speaking with them candidly. We must continue to urge and plead for gun control reform, because no one can deny that as it stands, it is out of control. Protecting the health and safety of our future generations has never been more important than right now. It is our duty to ensure that our youth have safe places to learn, play, and grow. Now, schools across this great nation have always been that place until now. We must do better now. As a graduate of this high school, I never thought I would see a memorial of this sort. It is dramatic because the situation is more dramatic. Here we are, and the chime for change is now. Our hearts go out to all of the families who have been affected and their lives forever changed by senseless acts of violence, especially in our schools. West New York is a very small a very small municipality, but a very big community. And under dire circumstances like these, a community just like Uvalde. Like many of you, as a father of a 6-year-old, when I first saw the pictures of those many students, the first thing that I saw in looking at those little children of Robb Elementary, I said, they're just like our kids. They look like our kids. They can be our kids because they are our kids. Let us protect them because they deserve it. Our hearts and prayers are with you, Uvalde. We are Uvalde. Thank you all. At this time, it is my pleasure to introduce a person who has always stood strong for safety of our students and children, U.S. Senator Bob Menendez. Thank you, sir.
Well, thank you, Mayor. Well, thank you, Mayor. First of all, let me thank the mayor and the commissioners, some of who are with us. Let me thank the West New York School District, the superintendent, the Board of Education members, the principal, and the teaching staff here who have joined us. Let me thank the students who are exhibiting, those that we had the privilege of meeting with inside as part of the representatives of the student body, who I think had such incredibly riveting and tough questions that exhibit the nature of what we're trying to overcome. And to all the students who, in an organized fashion, came out and are showing what they want to see and doing it in a dignified way as well as the speakers you'll hear from, my colleague in the United States Senate, Senator Cory Booker, who has been a tremendous advocate on reasonable gun safety laws as a member of the Senate Judiciary Committee, as well as the NJEA president that represents all of the teaching and educational staff in our schools throughout the country, and Moms Who Demand Action, and others who you'll hear from shortly. And we also have some of our public officials here. We have the mayor of Weehawken has joined us, Mayor Turner, the mayor of Bayonne has joined us, Mayor Davis, the sheriff of Hudson County is part of our law enforcement protection, the Sheriff Shalari, we appreciate him as well. You know, as we meet together, just last night, gun violence tore through multiple communities. At a medical facility in Tulsa, Oklahoma, 4 people were killed by a gunman and 2 were injured in shootings in Pennsylvania near a Walmart and outside a high school in Los Angeles. And while we pray for the families of the victims and those impacted by these horrific shootings, we're all here today because no more families need to go through what the families in Tulsa and Uvalde and so many others are going through today. Just before this event started, Senator Booker and I had the opportunity to meet with some of the students who are part of the peer mediation group here at Memorial High School. And I want to thank them, and I want to say to them, thank you for using your voice to speak for those who are no longer with us, represented by the memorial classroom of 21 empty desks, 1 for each of the 19 children in Uvalde and the 2 teachers who were senselessly taken from us. Thank you for using your voice for those who are currently recovering from their wounds, and for all those who forever carry with them the scars of gun violence, and for using your voice to make sure that we act so that this doesn't happen again. We're all here today to support Uvalde, a small, predominantly Latino town in Texas that is the latest community shattered by a mass shooting at a school. It follows Columbine and Virginia Tech, Sandy Hook, Santa Fe, Parkland, and now Uvalde. This year alone, there have been more mass shootings than days in the year. Across our country, 22 schools have had a shooting. And just 10 days after the senseless murder of 10 Americans in a Buffalo supermarket, 2 teachers and 19 children were killed in cold blood in their classrooms. Children, most of them in 3rd and 4th grade, cut down by an assault rifle that, in my view, has no place in our society. And I want to but because sometimes we get desensitized by numbers, I want to say their names. Alexandria Anilla Rubio, 10 years old. Alicia Ramirez, 10 years old. Amere Jo Garza, 10 years old. Anabel Guadalupe Rodriguez, 10 years old. Eliana Cruz Torres, 10 years old. Eliana Eli Garcia, 9 years old. Jackie Casares, 10 years old. Jalea Nicole Silguero, 10 years old. Jasi Carmelo Luganos, 10 years old. Jose Flores, 10 years old. Laila Salazar, 10 years old. Makena Lee Elrod, 10 years old. Maite Juliana Rodriguez, 10 years old. Miranda Macias, 11 years old. Nevaya Bravo, 10 years old. Rogelio Torres, 10 years old. Tess Maria Mata, 10 years old. Usaya Garcia, 8 years old. Javier Lopez, 10 years old. Eva Mireles, one of the teachers, 44 years old. Irma Garcia, 48 years old. Every single one of them leaves behind family members who will never be whole again. In the case of Irma Garcia's husband, a broken heart manifested in a fatal heart attack, presumably from grief. Make no mistake, as we speak right now, there is a community of loved ones in Uvalde who will always remember May 24th of the darkest day of their lives. The day when their children were slaughtered in the building where they went to learn, where they went to be safe, to learn, to run around at recess, to be a kid. How can we possibly claim the mantle of the greatest country in the world if elected officials simply stand by and let this happen? How can we live in a society where we regulate everything, from a license to drive a car to lottery tickets, but we cannot even simply require background checks for assault weapons capable of committing mass murder? How can we look our children and grandchildren in the eye and explain why they have to practice hiding in a closet or stay quiet under the desk in the dark just in case someone comes to their school with a gun? It's unconscionable, and it goes against every fiber of what this country should stand for, which is why I want to be abundantly clear. Every single mass shooting is a result of a policy failure. Guns, especially assault weapons, equipped with high-capacity magazines, do not belong in schools. They do not belong in our supermarkets or in a movie theater. They have no place in our houses of worship, in our workplaces. They don't belong on our streets, full stop, and they should be outlawed. Yeah. I know some of my colleagues in the United States Senate have a different view, but those who seek to kill Americans with such weapons do not have greater rights than our nation's children, to whom we have a precious obligation to protect. Their right is equally as great, if not greater. Now, some of you may see that our colleague on the Senate, Senator Chris Murphy, spoke on the Senate floor as the shooting unfolded. Senator Murphy is one of the senators from Connecticut who experiences the tragedy of Sandy Hook. He was there on that horrific night, consoling parents who received the worst news a parent can ever receive. He bore witness to the anguish, the agony of Americans who were being told that their little boy and their little girl weren't coming home. Senator Murphy came to the Senate floor last week to ask our colleagues a simple question. What are we doing here? If not to protect children in their schools, what are we doing here? If not to do everything possible to find a way out of this recurring nightmare, why go through all the trouble of running for office? Why even bother being a public servant? So I know what our answer to Senator Murphy is. What are we doing here? We are committed to honoring the victims of Uvalde. What are we doing here? We are going beyond thoughts and prayers. We are advocating for action. We are focused on passing a gun safety bill with measures that are proven to bring down the rates of Americans killed by a firearm. I'm talking about legislation that would expand background checks like H.R. 8 or the assault weapons ban that I voted for in 1994. These measures work, and there is simply no earthly reason why Congress has failed to act on measures which are supported by overwhelming majorities of Americans. Keeping you and your family safe is the most important responsibility we have as senators, which is why I'm proud to lead critical measures like the Keep Americans Safe Act, which would ban the sale of high-capacity magazines. You don't need a gun with 50 or 100 rounds. High-capacity magazines are high-capacity killing, and they should be outlawed once and for all. I have led measures with Senator Booker that would ban the sale of what they call ghost guns, untraceable weapons that can be assembled at home to kill others. And I'm a proud sponsor of the HERE Act with my colleague, Congresswoman Bonnie Watson-Coleman, that would outlaw gun silencers and suppressors. And as chairman of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, I've been focused on making sure that Congress cracks down on the gun manufacturers whose weapons are used to violate human rights abuses around the world. So we're very clear. We have solutions to the problem of guns in our country. We need the courage of some of our colleagues to finally break the gun lobby and vote for the American people. And next week, when we go back to Washington, we refuse to accept business as usual. We want a vote, and we want to see who stands with the American people and who does not. It's time for the American people to know who is for protecting our kids and who is standing in the way of common sense gun reforms. We owe it to those who are no longer with us. We owe it to those who survived, those who will someday have to return to the scene of the worst day in their lives. And we owe it to every child and parent in America so that when we say never again, we actually mean it. So I'll end up with this. Outside of Robb Elementary School in Uvalde, there is a sign. It says, welcome. And then underneath it, it says, bienvenido. As I have thought about what to say today, this image has haunted me in my brain. That bilingual sign, alongside of the images of little kids holding honor roll certificates, honor roll certificates they earned at the end of the school years, for me, the starkest reminder of what this means for a tight-knit Latino community like Uvalde. And as I read the list of names, I can't help but think of my own family. I'll never forget the day when my daughter Alicia and my son Rob, who's here with us, came home safely from high school the day of the Columbine massacre. And now, as a grandfather of 3 girls, I'm terrified to think about the risks they could face. I have 3 granddaughters, Evangelina, Ophelia, and Olivia. They are younger than the kids we mourned today, but their names are so familiar. How will we explain to them why the Senate took no action after 10 black Americans lost their lives grocery shopping? After 19 Latino children and 2 Latino teachers lost their lives going to school? What kind of nation are we leaving behind for them? ¿Hasta cuándo? ¿Hasta cuándo? Déjeme cerrar ahora con unas palabras en español para nuestros hermanos en la prensa hispana. Estamos reunidos hoy simplemente para reclamar la seguridad de todos nuestros hijos y todas nuestras familias. Tener reformas que actualmente limite el armas de asalto limite cartuchos de alta capacidad, que insiste en un reviso universal de todo eso que quieren comprar una arma para asegurar que no tienen precedentes criminales, que no tienen precedentes de alguna enfermedad mental, que no tienen precedentes de abuso doméstico, simplemente puede salvar vidas. ¿Cuántas vidas más tenemos que perder? ¿Cuántas vidas más tenemos que perder? El senador Booker y yo regresamos al Congreso, al Senado la semana que viene, insistiendo de que tenemos que tener votos. No sé si vamos a lograr los 60 votos que hace falta en el Senado para cambiar la ley, pero sí sé que el pueblo norteamericano debe saber quién está en favor de reformas y quién no. Quién está en favor de nuestras familias y quién no. Quién tiene el coraje de poner su voto para asegurar de que las armas que están matando a nuestras familias pueden ser limitadas. That's why we are here today. And in that fight, I am thrilled to have as my colleague in the United States Senate, a member of the Senate Judiciary Committee who has been fighting alongside with me to make this happen, Senator Cory Booker.
So I am sorry that we have to be here today, but I am grateful that we are, that we're not standing in an empty square talking about issues that don't seem to rouse the collective outrage of our country. The truth is, the overwhelming majority of Americans want us to change this national nightmare. Senator Menendez and I have been fighting on this issue, not in a reactive sense, since the day I got to the Senate, coming from a community too often ravished by gun violence. We have been working for change, proposing legislation, pushing, fighting, giving speeches, making demands. But today, I have hope, because what brings us here is the strength and the commitment and the fight and the demand of our young people. I want to say thank you to the high school students that are surrounding us right now. You are the hope of our nation. It was not long ago in American history that a young woman underestimated, believed that she could make a difference. She literally was from our state, but went down to Washington and led the very first protest in front of the White House. Her name was Alice Paul. When they told her she was a second-class citizen, she said no. When they told her she couldn't make change, she said no. She went to prison for her protest. She went on a hunger strike for her protest. And finally, the President of the United States, then Woodrow Wilson, said, "You are right, I will join you, and I will join the suffrage movement." That's our history. Impossible, implacable, unbelievable odds. But what overcame that were people, often from our state, who went on freedom rides, who protested in the suffrage movement, who fought against the Vietnam War. We have made change before, and no one here should feel demoralized or dejected in this moment of history. We should feel empowered. We should feel strong. We should feel confident. This is the time for us to demand change. And so let us not equivocate. Let us not hesitate. Let us not retreat 1 inch from our demands. We demand universal, comprehensive background checks. We demand a ban on military-style assault weapons that belong in theaters of war and not in our streets. We demand a nation that doesn't make it easier to get a driver's license than to get a gun license. We demand licensing in the United States. Nothing I am saying is a partisan issue. Let's be clear. Everything I just said, all of those demands are overwhelmingly supported by Democrats and Republicans in America. This is not an issue of right or left. This is an issue of right or wrong. And what we are doing is not an assault on constitutional rights. No, I'm sorry. Every right in the Constitution has reasonable restraints. We do not allow people to stand up in a crowded movie theater and yell fire. And yet somehow we are allowing people with weapons that belong in war to fire them in our supermarkets, in our mosques, in our synagogues, and in our schools. We are Americans. The mission statement of our country is clear. Let me read you the first words of our Constitution and what our mission statement is. We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union. But here are the things we wanted to do. Establish justice. Ensure domestic tranquility. Here's one. Provide for the common defense. Promote the general welfare. And secure the blessings of liberty. Think about those four things. Think about justice and tranquility, the common defense, and the general welfare. How far off have we gone from those core mission statements? We don't have domestic tranquility when people are shooting in our streets and our houses of worship, in our schools and our supermarkets. We do not have justice or freedom when our children can't go to school, as we just heard from students, without a freedom from fear or a freedom from worry. Israel was just telling me about every time that he hears us do a drill of being locked down, he goes to his cell phone and texts to his family that this might be it. He said he texts love because he doesn't know if this drill is going to be for real. What does that do to our children? It's like saying, hey, we've got a hole in the boat, in the ship of our nation, and instead of plugging the hole, we're going to just pass out more buckets. That is not a solution. It is a surrender when we tell our children, we can't protect you, so we're going to teach you how to hide. That's not what the strongest nation on the planet Earth does. It's not who we are. And so today, look around this circle of strength. There are people from all backgrounds. There are people from all faiths. There are people from all across the political spectrum, and we join in solidarity. We the people, we the people, we the people, in order to form a more perfect union. Well, this country is being torn apart by gun violence. And it's time that we heal. It's time that we help. It's time that we realize that there is nothing that is wrong with America that can't be solved by what's right with America. And so Senator Menendez is right. We're going to go back to Washington, D.C., and he and I are going to get into the well of the Senate and push and fight and try to make sure we pass something that will make change. And I'm going to tell you, if we win the day with the legislation being negotiated right now, I've been talking to Senator Murphy, in touch with Kirsten Sinema. If we pass this legislation, yes, it is a good thing, but it will only be incremental change. It will be necessary change, but it will not be sufficient to end this national nightmare. What does it take to change in America? Yes, you need legislators in Congress fighting for it. Well, you've got them all across the state of New Jersey, our Congress people, your senators. Heck, your governor and your state legislature has already passed so many of these laws. You have people fighting for you. But we are vulnerable right now because this state is only as safe as the closest state to us with the weakest gun laws. When I was mayor of the city of Newark, after shootings, we would do the analysis and we would find out that the guns came from outside of the state. They're not New Jersey guns. The majority of them are from other places that have weak gun laws. That's why the fight is for national legislation. And so I want to tell you right now, remember Alice Paul. She didn't wait for a bunch of men on the Senate floor to come together in a huddle and say, hey, fellas, let's give those women the right to vote. No, that's not how change happened. Change happened by American citizens, by we, the people, demanding action, because as Frederick Douglass says, power concedes nothing without a demand. If there is no struggle, there is no progress. Well, we all together, collectively, these young people leading us today, say, I am up for the struggle. I will fight to defend my nation. I will stand for domestic tranquility. I will stand for justice. I will stand for freedom from fear and gun violence and murder. We can achieve that in America. This is our country. Let us change its destiny now and commit ourselves to doing what is necessary. Let us commit ourselves to peace and love and change and progress and a more perfect union. Now, I'm sorry you have two brothers here as your senators, but there's a little sibling rivalry. So ahora voy a hablar en español rápidamente. La situación ahora es inaceptable. Hay demasiada violencia en nuestro país, pero tenemos el poder. El poder de la gente es increíble. Ahora necesitamos usar nuestro poder. Necesitamos luchar. Necesitamos trabajar. Porque yo tengo fe y esperanza con el poder de la gente, especialmente los niños. Con nuestro poder vamos a tener un día nuevo, un día de paz. Vamos a tener éxito por la gente. Gracias.
Well, first and foremost, I want to thank both Senator Menendez and Senator Booker for being here today. I can tell you I had the opportunity to be inside just for a little bit and hear the frank conversations that were occurring with the students who are so often affected by the trauma, as was noted, of gun violence, and certainly the conversation as to what actions need to occur for us to finally see something to happen. But I got to tell you, it's a sad day when I stand here and say that it takes real political courage to stand up and speak out when the gun lobby wants everyone to sit down and shut up. And certainly in New Jersey, we're fortunate to have two senators, Senator Menendez and Senator Booker, who have decided to put the needs of their constituents and their communities ahead of campaign contributions from the NRA. So let's give them a big round of applause and credit for their convictions. But let's reflect on that. Why? Why is it courageous that after just 1 week after the slaughter of 19 children and 2 teachers, that standing up and saying the status quo is not okay is something that's courageous? How does anyone have the nerve to act like this is still a debate that we still need to have, as opposed to something that we need to end now, stopping the violence and saving our communities? As a father who drops off his 4-year-old and 2-year-old every morning to school, and who got the same messages as so many others when the news of Uvalde started coming in, and texted my wife and said, please give our children a hug before I get home, I'm angry. I'm angry that anyone can put such little value on the lives of our children. How do they still oppose common sense changes to help keep kids safer? As a mayor, I'm mad. I'm mad that students in my town, like students here and students everywhere in America, went to school this week wondering whether their classrooms would be next. As an educator, I'm sad. I'm sad that even today, my colleagues went into their buildings, went into their classrooms, not knowing if today is the day that they would have to put themselves, their bodies, in front of bullets to save the lives of their students. We do this because we have not decided as a nation that weapons of war and mass destruction have no place in a free and sane society. It's been a little less than 9 days since we first started getting word of the terror taking place in Texas. And certainly we were all sick when we heard those reports come in, but I don't think really that many of us were surprised because this has happened way, 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 way too many times in America. The massacre in Uvalde was only 9 days ago, and it's not even the most recent mass shooting. Just last night, a gunman in Tulsa killed at least 4 people in a medical building. What kind of country do we live in where we gather at an event to protest recent mass shootings and people have to ask, which shooting? And what effect is this having on our students? How are they supposed to focus on learning punctuation or how to write a sentence or learn the periodic table when they've got to wonder if they're safe from the next mass shooter running through the hallways? The lives lost in Uvalde last week are an unimaginable tragedy. That alone is more than enough reason to demand change. That's not to mention all of the other mass shootings that we are all so familiar with, whether it's Parkland, Sandy Hook, Virginia Tech, Columbine, and a long, long list. We see it in schools, in churches, in malls, in movie theaters. Far too many places to name. For all those lives lost, we owe nothing less than a fierce fight for real reform and consequential change. But we aren't just fighting for the memory of those lost. We're fighting for the children who are going to school today, scared and worried, wondering what the day brings when they're trying to focus on their learning. The trauma that they are experiencing leaves a deep mark. It's a trauma not easily healed. And we have to understand that the first step is stopping the trauma from continuing to occur. Of course, we are already hearing that there's nothing that we can do to prevent the next shooting or even to make a difference. But I refuse to accept this excuse that America's gun problem is too big to tackle. When our children's lives are at stake, we cannot stand for excuses or inaction. We need more leaders like the one standing here today with the courage to prioritize our children and our communities over those special interests. So those of us who value our children's lives have our voices, as our students are showing us yet again here today, to demand a change to the status quo. To say that while the NRA may have their money, we have our voices, we have our votes, and we need to use our voices and our votes to stand up for our students, to protect the people we love, to elevate elected leaders who care about us and our communities, and to help get rid of those who refuse to solve the problem. No more silence, no more accepting the status quo. It's time to raise our voices, it's time to push forward with our votes, and it is time for us to be the change we need. I ask that as we leave today, we remember that each of us can make a difference. It's daunting, we know, and certainly in the conversation with the students, the senators both noted this, Senator Menendez, I believe, noted it's not going to be easy. We understand that, but it is not impossible. It is not impossible to demand the change, as Senator Booker noted, to live up to the ideals of our nation, the very best nation in the world, and say we can do better, we must do better, we demand we do better, and we demand that that occur now. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you, Sean. Next is Nicola Zamora, the Moms Demand Action volunteer and Jersey City Public School teacher.
So good. First of all, the students of West New York, your chant definitely had moved me. Good day, everyone. So my name is Nicola Zamora, and I am a educator for Jersey City Public Schools as a teacher for students with autism. So I moved to Miami in Florida in 1990 when I was 9 years old from Colombia because of the violence and corruption. However, I soon realized that Miami had its own violence and that getting guns was all too easy. By middle school, I knew where to buy a gun, and many of my peers did just that. Fast forward to 2004, I was a third grade inclusion teacher. It was my first year teaching, and it was also my first lockdown. I immediately closed the shutters, locked the doors, and asked my students to quietly hide under their desks. Just looking at my students hiding under their desks, I came to realize that if someone came in and shot us, we would all be dead. After the lockdown was over, I was informed that it was a gang trying to enter the school, but the principal and security were able to convince them to leave. Luckily, no one was hurt that day. 3 years later, 2007, I moved to New Jersey, in part because I knew that New Jersey has safer gun laws, and it would be a safer place, to start a family. I now have a 12-year-old daughter, who I know is safer here than she would be in Miami. But I also know that gun violence can happen anywhere and at any time. In December 2019, there was a mass shooting against the Jewish community in Jersey City. Again, I was in lockdown with my students until 7 p.m. While my aides were watching the news through their cell phones, I began calling the parents of my students to let them know that we were okay. Again, I was lucky that the shooter was just a few minutes away, and the police was already there trying to stop the shooter. In the meantime, most of the students didn't know what was going on, except one. And that one student had asked me if he could call his mother. And when he called his mother, he said, "Mom, we're going to die." I had to stay strong and comfort him. However, that moment has forever been drilled in my head. Listening to my student say, "Mom, we're going to die." Every time I hear about another school shooting, it takes me back to my childhood, my lockdowns, because I always think that could have been me. I have been blessed that my turn hasn't come yet, but I always wonder if my turn to die will be next, and if I won't be so lucky. Now I also have to worry about my daughter's safety, and if she could be next. Even with all the security that we have, I still don't feel safe. Look what happened to Uvalde. They had security at the school, and the shooter couldn't be stopped. They had about 10 police officers standing on the sidelines, arresting some of the parents who were desperate to get to their children instead of worrying about the shooter. Since the shooting in Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School in Florida, I had decided to become more proactive by taking action, by doing what I can to advocate against gun violence, by doing what I do best, to educate. Along with many volunteers from Everytown and Moms Demand Action, we go around the state and educate parents, caregivers, grandparents, etc., about the importance of safe gun storage through the Be Smart for Kids program. I don't know about you, but I am sick and tired of seeing dead children and teachers die because we have cowards in the Senate that refuse to stand up to the NRA. Cowards that have the audacity to show up to the NRA convention even after the death of 21 innocent lives, but yet won't let guns decide their own convention. I'm sick and tired of seeing neighboring states refusing to join states like New Jersey in passing common gun sense laws. I blame them for making our state vulnerable to criminals who bring weapons from their state. I'm furious that these 50 cowards in the Senate refuse to pass simple gun laws like background checks, red flag laws, regulate assault weapons, raise the age to purchase a gun, and repeal the PLCAA. And to all of those out there who think we're out to take your guns, from these common gun sense laws I just mentioned, take a moment to think which one of them says we're taking all of your guns away. None of them do. So wake up and listen carefully to what we're asking for. We're asking for common gun sense laws. So if you want to take action and help, call these 50 cowards in the Senate and tell them to pass these common gun sense laws. Y para mi gente latina de Uvalde, te quiero y les mando un abrazo. Rezo por sus hijos y rezo a Dios que les dé la fuerza a cada uno de ustedes para seguir luchando. No se rindan. And lastly, I want to say speak out. And speak out about gun violence. Don't wait for it to be your turn before it's too late. Take action today. Thank you.
All right. Our next speaker is West New York's own high school teacher, Francisca Sanchez, AP History.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Fran Sanchez, and I teach at Memorial High School. I have the pleasure of not just teaching here, but having graduated from this very school, 1980. I would like to thank and welcome Senators Menendez and Booker for taking time to visit Memorial High School to address our students' concerns. I would like to thank our superintendent, Ms. Clara Herrera, and our school principal, Mr. Guerrero, for making this event possible. Lastly, I'd like to welcome all our board members, our Mayor Gabriel Rodriguez, distinguished guests, students, and staff. We are here today to raise awareness within our community about the effects of gun violence. Even though our community has not experienced an immediate threat, our students and staff do experience the psychological effects of the numerous school shootings taking part in our nation. We might be hundreds of miles from Uvalde, Texas, but we feel their loss. School is supposed to be a safe haven. Yet as the years have passed and the numbers of shootings have increased, more students and teachers find themselves fearing for their safety. This year, our school introduced a more realistic active shooter in the building drill that took place while students were changing classes. As we gathered the students into the classrooms, many students stopped and asked, "Is this just a drill?" And for a moment, I found myself thinking the same thing. Even though we recognize the importance of the realistic component, it introduced another level of anxiety and tension among the students that was palpable. This time, the drill felt more immediate. It is our responsibility, it is our duty to advocate for gun measures that will keep our students safe. It is my hope that our students will use these feelings and their passion to continue to keep this issue at the forefront and push for meaningful change. We are here today to amplify their voices. Thank you, and thank you to the students who rallied to this occasion.
And next, we'll hear from one of your own fellow students, Bradley Mansell, who's a sophomore. Bradley?
Good morning. My name is Bradley Mansell, and I'm a student here at Memorial High School, just like my many other peers who are here around us. I want to thank everyone who is here today, as I am hoping to do my part in bringing an end to gun violence. As a student, I should worry about my grades, catching a football, and even who I will be taking to prom, not if something might happen. As we all know, we need change now. We should be the last group of students that have to come together to ask for gun control. It doesn't make sense how it's easier for me to get my hands on a gun than it is for me to get my driver's license. Gun control will help stop the killing of innocent people and students. Finally, I would like to thank all the elected officials who are here along with us, fighting for change. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Bradley. All right. So that ends our speaking program. in a democracy, we take questions from the press, so we'll take a few on-topic questions if there are any. Well, there are negotiations taking place with a couple of our colleagues, led by Senator Murphy, with a couple of our Republican colleagues. It is my hope that they will come to an agreement. As Senator Booker said, from what we understand of the negotiations, what they're talking about would be welcomed, but it would not be the totality of what we are talking about here today, which we think is necessary for the nation. So whether it's a red flag statute or something along those lines, we certainly welcome a breakthrough, because we have not been able to get 60 votes. As I know the students here are learning history, in the United States Senate, because of our procedures, we don't get to pass something into law by a simple 51 majority. When one senator wants to stand in the way, you got to get 60 votes. And as Democrats, we don't have 60 votes in the United States Senate. So we look forward to the voices of the people being raised to a crescendo that finally gets the attention of their senators in their states to cast their votes for common sense gun reform. Simplemente hay negociaciones entre algunos de nuestros colegas, el senador Murphy de Connecticut con algunos de los republicanos. Esperamos que esa negociación lleve algún fruto de posibilidad, aunque de lo que yo entiendo las negociaciones, eso es, si se logra, no es todo lo que queremos ver. Es un paso adelante, rompemos el hielo de que nunca hemos podido tener reformas con referencia a armas, pero no es lo que queremos ver. Lo que nosotros queremos ver es el fin de armas de asalto, el fin de cartuchos de alta capacidad. La necesidad de que cualquier persona que quiere conseguir una arma en este país tiene que ir por un reviso universal. Eso por lo menos puede crear más seguridad para nuestras familias. No creo que eso está en la mesa de negociación, pero vamos a insistir de que haya votos en el Senado para que el pueblo norteamericano entienda quién está en favor de estas reformas y quién no. Cory, you want to answer that? Okay. Senator Booker dice que está bien. Okay. Sí.
Obviamente usted se da cuenta, obviamente en New Jersey el país está harto de todo lo que está pasando. Algunos senadores demócratas dicen que hay el optimismo de que algo puede cambiar. ¿Usted cree que realmente hay posibilidad de conseguir algo?
Bueno, como termino de decir, siempre no puede ser uno un legislador y no tener algún nivel de optimismo, ¿no? Porque si no, ¿para qué vamos a seguir luchando? Obviamente luchamos con la visión de que algo es posible. Ahora, por primera vez, algunos colegas republicanos están en una negociación con algunos de nuestros colegas. Vamos a ver qué fruto da esas negociaciones, qué posibilidad da esas negociaciones. Cualquier cosa que se hace en este sentido es bienvenido, aunque no creo que va a ser todo lo que el senador Booker y yo queremos.
Senador, y con respecto a esa pregunta, ¿usted me puede decir cuáles son los mayores obstáculos de esas negociaciones que usted ve ahora que están atorados?
Los mayores obstáculos. Los mayores obstáculos mira, tenemos una organización nacional que se llama el NRA. El NRA es las siglas del National Rifle Association, la Asociación Nacional de Rifle. Es increíble porque nada de lo que nosotros estamos diciendo que hay que pasar le va a quitar a una persona que puede pasar por un procedimiento para revisar sus antecedentes criminales de salud mental, la posibilidad de tener una arma. Lo que sí vamos a limitar, armas de asalto, armas de cartuchos de 100 balas. ¿Quién le hace falta 100 balas para ir a cazar? Nadie. Entonces estamos limitando la posibilidad de que la violencia que vemos en nuestra escuela y nuestra sociedad puede tener un fin, para que actualmente personas no vayan a morir. Porque dicen, los contrincantes de nuestra posición dicen, no, porque las armas no matan, las personas matan. Pero mira, si tú no tienes una arma de asalto en la mano, no voy a matar tanta gente. Cae del cielo, que es actualmente una reforma legítima que puede salvar vidas. Si alguien me va a tratar de hacerme una herida con un cuchillo diferente que con una pistola, o una arma de asalto con 100 balas, eso es para matar. No tiene otra razón. Así que esa asociación no quiere limitación ninguna, ni de reformas razonables. Y tienen una influencia en nuestro país por el dinero que ponen en favor de estos candidatos y miembros del Congreso que responden a esos intereses. Pero no hay interés más importante en este país que la voz de los ciudadanos y su voto. Si el pueblo norteamericano hace esto como el tema más importante para ellos, ver su Congreso responder, terminamos con la violencia, tenemos reformas, y por eso estamos aquí, para alzar nuestras voces y para urgir que otros alcen sus voces también, no solamente en nuestro estado, pero a nivel de toda la nación. Esa es la dificultad. Okay. Any other last questions? Yes.
What's that?
Why are they going to be different? You've done this before.
So first of all, I just want to get behind that question for a second, because the students from Parkland, Moms Demand Action, Gabby Giffords organization, the Brady organization, their efforts over this last decade have made a lot of change. There have been state laws changed all over America. They are making progress. So this idea that nothing has changed is almost a statement that tries to diffuse the energy of organizers who are making changes, including in our state, where we are continuing to push for more comprehensive and more informed background checks to deal with everything from ghost guns into some of these new ways of obtaining the mechanisms for guns on the internet. So first of all, we are making progress. It's almost as if we're judging the civil rights movement on 1954 and all the organizing that was going on then, and not seeing what's ultimately happened as a result of the works in the 1950s that happened in the 1960s. So God bless those folks. The second thing I'll say is what Senator Menendez, again, I feel like I'm repeating a lot of things he said in Spanish, but we are going to make some change, I believe, I hope. I think Chris Murphy has been blunt. It's an uphill battle. It's not, it's challenging, but we may make some change this time. But as I said, it will be necessary change, but nowhere sufficient. And this is where this Senator Menendez just said in Spanish is so critical. One of the best ways for the people to have a voice is an election in just 5 or 6 months. We are 1 or 2 senators away in the Senate. That's how close we are. Pennsylvania, Ohio, North Carolina, Wisconsin, 1 or 2 and holding on to the House for making massive change. And so this is what he said, el primero tema, and the main theme on this election is got to be an election that is about, do you want common sense gun safety or not? Not about Republican or Democrat. This is a nonpartisan movement, but do you want to have common sense gun safety or not? Do you support candidates who the corporate gun lobby supports, or do you support candidates that will work to make change? Tenemos el elegir. We have a choice here, and I believe it's time for more Americans to join the activists and begin to join the demand for change. That's when politicians will respond, and we'll see more dramatic change.
Anyone else? Last question. Anyone else? Anyone else? Yes.
Can you repeat the question, please? In the town of West York, we are lucky to have a shared service agreement between our police department, clearly under the municipality, and the Board of Education. It's something that we've implemented for many years, and where uniformed police officers like the ones that you see here today are in every school for the entire day of the school. So we don't have security guards, we have actual police officers in our schools. Clearly, as technology increases, we want to increase with technology in providing better and safer environments, doors, windows, etc., in all our buildings. We're an older community, we have old schools, that's not an excuse, and we're working on that.
All right, with that, we're finished. I want to compliment the students for their positive energy, for the way that they've expressed themselves. I also want to urge them to go back to school. Because what you're doing inside is as important as what we have been doing out here. We need a new generation of leaders, and to do that, you have to prepare yourself. So thank you very much. Thank you to West New York, and thank you to the students.